So we'll start off with the winning script, Night of the X-Ray Zombies by Jay Danger.
Okay, 10 minutes. Gotcha. Winning feels real good. It feels awesome. I was very stoked. I didn't expect it because there were so many awesome scripts, but it was super fun. Favorite character to write? Honestly, I think it was the Warwick character, just because I like the idea of like a kind of weird older like not smart doc character, and yeah, he was just kind of fun. Did I watch any B movies during the writing process? I was watching a lot of stuff on Shudder, like a lot of '80s horror movies, and not so many like B movies, but like just kind of crappy '80s ones, and that's part of why I think my first act is so long without anything happening because like all the movies I watched, they were just super super drawn out, like first acts, and then everything kicks in at the end. So I was trying to mimic that with this script, and then everyone just was not really stoked on that part. No, the script was pretty much the from outline. Like it changed like a little bit, but I wrote it in like 9 days for the first draft, and then just kept editing after that. My favorite kill, I just like the first person that gets puked on. That's I think the carnival guy where he just gets doused in it. Oh hey yeah, if we're recording this, I'll repeat all of the questions. How did I come up with boric acid suppositories? So I actually cut that out of the newest draft. I was looking for things that would stop like a nuclear like reaction, and like boron coated rods and sand. So I I even asked my wife. I was like, should I do this? And she said no. And then every other female that read it was like, that was the worst. Why would you put that in there? So I appreciate all of the ladies' input, and I took it out, and it's now cat litter. So it has nothing to do with boron anymore. She sometimes does. This one, she never got a chance to. So I would just ask her questions. My wife proofreads a lot of my stuff if I'm submitting it to like other contests, but this one I just didn't have time. Do I believe the radiation absorbed by the zombies was greater than 3.6? Was it Rontgen? I don't even know how to say that. I don't know. The things that they were using to measure it only went so high. So, let's see. What is the ideal contest theme I would like to write for? Honestly, I just like I never come up with I can't come up with ideas on my own. So if someone gives me some like a place to start, then I feel like I can go from there. So honestly, just anything is super fun. Almost sometimes the harder it is, the more fun it is. Did you find writing B movie style harder or easier than other scripts? I found it easier because I could care a little bit less and just kind of go wild. But then some of the stuff that I was just like a little too carefree on was a lot of the stuff people complained about. What's a location you would like to write a story in? I don't know. I wanted to write one in Las Vegas, and I just did that. So maybe like the next step is like I don't know, Los Angeles, because I never write anything. How many scripts have I written before this one? A lot of really bad ones. I don't even know. I've been writing off and on for a long, long time, and I just kind of move on to the next script and hope that it gets better. How did I get into the contest? It was the last one that we did, like the big Halloween one. I tried to enter the one before and couldn't figure out an idea, and then I just kind of entered. I think I found it through screenwriting. The last one was my Cormac Cove one. That was my last script that I entered. I don't know if I missed any. I'm going back to see if is there anything I would like to cut. Actually, you guys were asking me if there's anything that I would cut to make it shorter. I would like anyone else to tell me what to cut because I can't figure it out. There's a lot of stuff I know I can cut, and it needs to be a lot shorter. But at this point, my brain is just too fried. So, when you got the title for this one, were you stoked about it, or did you find yourself struggling at first? I was kind of bummed because I felt like it was kind of like shoehorned in. Like I had to figure out like X-ray zombies, but then when I got the '50s theme, suddenly it all kind of came together really quick. So I was stressed about it for like 2 days, and then it just kind of happened. Was there anything you wanted to be in there that but I couldn't fit in? I had a scene that was like a Mighty Ducks reference where they're biking down like a street, and Warwick is just calling out different formations, and they're avoiding zombies that way. But it's kind of boring, and I needed to cut stuff, so I ended up cutting my Mighty Ducks reference. I think the flying V thing is still in there, but the rest of the reference is gone. How'd I come up with the visual for the X-ray zombies themselves? Well, they're supposed to be X-ray zombies, so I just I pictured what they would look like. I think I stole a lot of the imagery from the old X-ray goggles ads from like the 50s and 60s. Any horror writers you really like? I still haven't read Stephen King, and everyone was really mad at me last time, and I said I would read it before this time, and no. You covered racial issues a bit in your script. Did you have any concerns about covering this topic? Yes, I didn't really want to do that at all, but I really did want to write about a band that traveled to different schools. One of the coolest things I thought about like bands from like the 50s and 60s were that like they didn't play venues. They just played school dances and weird stuff like that. So I wanted to get one of those touring bands in the script. And then the more history I did, or the more research I did on the history, it was pretty much, it had to be like a black Motown band. So that's how they got into it. And then I felt like if I'm writing a script in like the late 50s, I kind of had to address some of that stuff. So I tried not to write too much about it, but I felt like I wrote enough that it was natural and would have happened. Any horror writers I really like? I love Lovecraft, but I mean everybody does. Any zombie movies that were a big influence? I tried not to take anything from other zombie movies just because I feel like I would have just immediately gone to the original Dawn of the Dead or Night of the Living Dead and just gone with the slow moving stuff. Favorite script in this contest? My number one was Pants script. I really like this one and the last one because I feel like they're like approachable horror, which is like a weird thing. I don't know. I just really liked both of them, and I think I read this one first this time, and it stuck with me for the rest. So yeah, would I survive in my own script? Probably not. I don't think I would be aware enough. I hate vomit, so I probably would have gotten out of there pretty quick, but I don't think I have the wherewithal to survive. Yeah. I think I have 1 minute left. How different would the story be set in modern day? I don't know. I've been thinking about that. Maybe I'll do a sequel just for funsies. I actually did I did a whole bunch of rewrites, and I got coverage on this from We Screenplay just because I had like a free thing, and they seemed to really like it. So I had a free thing from Blacklist too, so I put it up there. So we'll see what happens with. I retitled it, by the way. It's now called Atomic Vomit, which I think is a better, more approachable name. So we'll see. We'll see if I get to write a sequel. Did I watch? Do you have my own favorite B horror movies that I watch? Honestly, I just watched Chopping Mall, and I love that so much because it's so silly. Yeah, I think that's like it's always my favorite one. Was the last one I watched. Was attempting to have the band play Earth Angel at the school dance. Yes. Yeah, I was trying to reference a lot more music, and then I went through and took it all out. there was more Buddy Holly stuff, and then I just decided to make them their own thing. Man, honestly, I was just trying to picture the Back to the Future dance and those guys in the band when I first wrote it. And that was my only reference to the band. Cool. I think I'm done. I think it's someone else's turn.
Yes. So I'm Hyper Puppy or Jonas. Because I don't mind giving away my own name. But yeah, questions. First thing I did once I got the title, I actually made like a mood board, which is something I don't usually do. But I was just like, I want to set something in like a mountainy, snowy sort of setting. And I was like, okay, I live in Vermont. Let's just get a bunch of Vermont pictures. So that was sort of how I got a lot of the feel of the script, even though it's set more like Western sort of mountains. Did I want to hold back after writing a very violent script for Venture? Actually, yes. I was sort of trying to do something a little bit slower paced because I haven't done a slower paced script since probably like Catch on Camera, which was like 2 years ago now, maybe longer. So yeah, I was going for something a little bit slower paced for once, and I don't know. I guess it paid off a bit. How difficult was writing this on a scale of 1 to 10? I don't know. Relative to other scripts, I'd say probably a 4 or 5, just because for once I actually stuck to my writing schedule. I was like, okay, I'm writing 5 pages a day from like this point on at like about 2 weeks in till it's done. And I actually did it pretty much. And so that was rare for me. Okay, this one seemed a bit more atmospheric than some of your other work. Was that a result of the feel from the title or an intentional choice of going into the contest? Yeah, I definitely wanted to write something more in this slower, more atmospheric style coming into this one. So that was something that a lot of my focus was on. How happy was I to finally get skiing stuff in a script? Very happy, because that's all I think about most of the time. So, how does it feel to place? Oh my god, it feels so good. I posted in the Discord right when I got that 3rd place, like that meme of the guy on the 3rd place podium, like spraying champagne into his face, and that's actually how it was. I've been with the contest for like 3 years, and placing for the first time, it was like, hell yeah, I got there. Did Roman really have the money, or were they lying? I don't know. When I wrote that part, Roman was a little bit different of a character than he ended up being, but I'd say they probably had money, but I don't know. I wasn't super focused on their backstory with that element so much. Did I watch any films to draw inspiration from? I did. I can link a letterbox list maybe right away. When we're done with this, but I can link a letterbox list of all the movies I drew inspiration from for this one. Is the mountain good or bad? I sort of wanted it to be sort of I'd say, yeah, generally good force, where it's sort of like a reforming sort of thing, like a supernatural jigsaw trap, but like actually helping people instead of just torturing them and saying you're helping people. And I sort of wanted to imply that the cult kind of had the mountain wrong, because they're a religious cult. They're not right about things. They sort of see the effect the mountain can have on people, but they don't like. They're treating it as more of a malevolent thing-ish. Why did nobody ever come back? I'm not sure. I wrote that bit and then went back on it and I wasn't super confident with that bit. I'll probably revise that in later drafts. Would I write a sequel to this or any of my other scripts? I wouldn't write a sequel to this because I think it's sort of a contained story. I don't know where I would take it. I would definitely write a sequel to Overkill if I was to write a sequel to any of my scripts. Where would I rank this compared to my others? I'd probably put it at the top in terms of my writing quality within it. I think this is probably I think I personally have matured as a writer, so this is better than my previous scripts. But I definitely have more fun with a script like Overkill or even What Happened to McCranwell, because that's probably my most sellable and makeable one. I missed a veg question. What would happen if I walked myself into that mountain cave? I don't know. I'm not nearly as self-aware as I'd like to be. I'd need to know my own flaws a little bit better to know what would happen there. Okay. How do I feel my taste in horror movies compares to the type of script I've written? I don't know. I get very deep into specific subgenres at like random times, and that generally influences what I'm writing, but not with this script so much. I wasn't watching a lot of slow burn stuff other than for research for the script. So my current taste in horror while I was writing it was really more like I was watching a lot of J-horror stuff, and I don't really think that affected this script so much, but it definitely is affecting the ideas I have for another script. So maybe next contest. Where's the next one? There it is. Did I have an ending in mind from the get-go? Yes, kind of. I knew I wanted Lori to accidentally kill Roman in a sort of way like that, because I sort of had their backstory with that part planned out from the beginning. I was like, okay, I'm going to tie it in with them bringing back all the like trauma things they had. Also, Frederick's ending I had in mind from the get-go. That said, I was originally going to make Frederick's sort of trial the big climax, but when I wrote Roman and Laurie's, I was like, this hits way harder than anything I could write for Frederick, especially because they're sort of more fleshed out characters. So I decided to make Frederick's a little bit more of like a falling action sort of thing, while Roman and Laurie's was the main ending. I guess I said Skinkle. I don't know what. Oh, I did. There was a mention that I went through a breakup around the time of writing this. I did not go through a breakup on time of writing this. I'd need to be in a relationship to go through a breakup. The nasty female character was just like, okay, I'm writing this nasty character hey, maybe it would be a little bit more subversive if she was not the traditional archetype of this character. So maybe make it, I don't know, she's a gang leader. Normally that would be like in movies, it would be cliche, make it like a big black dude. And I was like, no, let's just make it this like smaller white woman. That might be like more of a different way to do that. And I did not intend for her to be the only woman in the story. That's just sort of how it shook out. I didn't think about that till later. And I'm like, oh, damn. Would I argue with someone if they misinterpreted the script or just let them carry on with their opinion? Like if they said, oh, this is just like a Nolan movie. I don't know. I don't even know how I would respond to stuff like that, because this isn't a script where like there's so much, like I guess there's plenty open to interpretation, but there's not stuff where like people would get a thematic element wrong and it would directly harm their enjoyment of the story, because I tend to focus more on the direct enjoyment of a story in terms of, is it fun to read or watch, rather than is the thinking about it isn't the main element that I'm focusing on. So I don't really mind too much if people misinterpret stuff, as long as it's not directly hurting their enjoyment of it. Did they actually intend to pay Frederick that money, or were they lying about it and planning on killing him and leaving him on the mountain? I'm not sure. I kind of like that interpretation. But it's not something I was really thinking of so much, because I was like, this probably isn't going to come up, so I didn't put too much thought into it. Thank you, Jay, that Lori was your favorite character of the contest. I honestly was worried about how she would be received, and it seemed kind of mixed, but I have good feedback to fix up that character for the next time around. I'm glad you enjoyed her. What is my favorite of my scripts? I still have such a soft spot for Overkill, because that script is just exactly the type of thing I like to watch a lot of the time. Big fan of movies like Riccio, so I don't know, if I ever saw one of my scripts on screen, I would want it to be that one. Was the character that was totally fulfilled in life just by skiing a self-insert? No comment. Wouldn't the mountain cult find that kind of regret-free life as a good thing? The mountain cult, I wanted to put in a lot that they're just kind of hypocrites taking advantage of being present in a supernatural situation, sort of like how any religion is like taking advantage of the situation they're in. And so the mountain cult doesn't really get what's going on around them. They just profess that they get it. So yeah, I don't know how they are hostile to Eric regardless of whether or not the mountain is hostile to Eric, just because he's an outsider coming in. Thank you for saying Overkill Rocks, Dylan. I loved your audio feedback for that one. Did I see any similarities in writing this with writing Below the Mountain, another Snowy Mayhem screenplay? Actually, Nightmare Land was the script that compared a lot more to Below the Mountain in terms of what I was doing with it. With this one, snowy settings are something I've done before, obviously, with that. And visually, I probably took a lot of the same influences, but in terms of writing it, I don't know. It's writing scene setting like I would write any scene setting. Did I find writing to a title more difficult than usual, or about the same or easier? Well, luckily, I got a really awesome title. Thank you, Astro. But I guess I kind of came up with the Eternal as the name of the mountain pretty quickly, and from there, it just sort of was like, okay, I have a story in mind. We're going for it. Did I have any other pitches in mind for this title? Before I got Road Trip as like my condition, I was thinking of making it much more like one location, sort of play up the Lovecraftian elements much more, which would have shaped the characters a little bit differently. Wouldn't have had the expedition motive so much, and the pacing probably would have been different. But once I got the road trip thing, at first I was struggling with it a bit, but I came up with a story idea fairly quickly and just rolled with it. All right, yeah, 1 minute left. So any final questions, kinda? Did I have a playlist to listen to while writing? I just kind of listen to the music I usually listen to, which is, of course, MCR and Fall Out Boy, because, yeah, I'm stuck in... But whatever. That was what I was listening to. I guess I did listen to some movie soundtracks as well. I listened to the Ritual soundtrack for this, because that was a big inspiration for this script. And I was trying really hard not to be derivative of that movie, because, like, it could very easily have been. I also listened to the Shining soundtrack a bit. The Thing soundtrack, of course. How is college? College is great. Film school is fun. But not having good internet in my dorm isn't fun. But I'm not there now, so college is great when I'm not on campus. How satisfying was it to finally write something super gory, the chainsaw kill, after the long build-up? I was really worried that that wouldn't go over super well after the long build-up, but it seemed to have gotten a good reception. But yeah, I love writing gory stuff. I love to return to it, but the ideas I have kicking around for whatever comes next, if it fits, isn't necessarily that, but gore is great. So yeah. Thanks for attending this part of the Q&A.
Hey there, folks. RamsesThePigeon / Max, whatever you'd like to refer to me. Here I am. Hit me with your questions, and I'll just talk to fill the silence since I know we're being recorded. When did I first hear about the contest? You know, I think I found it, strangely enough, just by random browsing, and it showed up at the top of my feed, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. How many scripts had I written before this one? I cannot even begin to count. I'm not sure how much of common knowledge this is, but I actually used to be a script doctor. And I've sold 3 scripts. So we'll say 3. Do I plan on entering the next contest with us? Yeah, I was looking at it's the television show pilot one, which I don't think I've ever written a horror television show pilot, so that would be interesting. Is the car lingo and stuff legitimate? If so, did you research, just know about that stuff? Absolutely all of it is 100% accurate and is historically relevant, and the vast majority of the time that I spent writing this was done on making sure I had every detail 100% accurate. It was all research. Did you enjoy the process and contest? I did. It was especially great to be able to read everybody else's offerings and just see all of the many ideas that came through. There's a lot of talent in this subreddit, and I was really impressed. When in the process did you decide to write your own theme song? So I write very, very fast, but I hold on to ideas for a hell of a lot longer than I should. So what I wound up doing was, after doing my 4th or 5th polish, I decided, you know what, I need to start working on something else, but I didn't want to let go of the idea yet, so that's when the theme song came around. What came first, the song or the script? The script. And if you notice, the song is actually sort of an epilogue to the script. Do I have any sequel ideas for Trackula? I do. I have 2 sequel ideas in mind. One of them is an 80s fest, for lack of a better term, and one of them would be a sort of cyberpunk, futuristic thing. Are you the one who wrote all those short comedy scripts that I've seen kicking around places like Funny? Yes, I am. I'm also the guy whose comedy scripts have frequently been either lifted with permission or lifted without permission that you may have seen on YouTube. Did you listen to music while writing this? No, I did not. In fact, I very rarely listen to music. I have synesthesia, and it scrambles my brain to listen to music. There are just colors flying everywhere. Did you have any other directions you thought about taking the title, or did you lock in the basic plot of the script as it came out? So believe it or not, originally, the entire thing was slated to take place back in colonial America. And I was reading it to my wife, just like the opening 30 pages or so, and she said, no, this has to have a 50s theme. How are you going to do that? And so I nixed a time travel element that I had in mind, and I nixed a whole bunch of other stuff, and more or less just started from scratch. Was your first draft longer or shorter than the final polish? Much, much longer. So folks had some concerns about Herman and Eddie having a little too much screen time, which is completely valid. But originally they even had larger parts. And so I went through and tried to cut out anything that wasn't expository, for lack of a better term. Were you singing on the song? Yes. I used to be, at the same time that I was a script doctor, a voiceover artist, and a singer. You seem to really throw yourself into the project with a lengthy script and a fair amount of extra stuff. Is this typical when you start a project? Yes. Yes, it is. As a glance at my Reddit profile will show, I tend to go all out with everything. Did any of the scripts you sold get produced, and can we see them? Yes, I can probably look up one of them right now if you'd like. If not, the script is called Sentient. Right, I'll wait until after my thing is. The script's called Sentient. It's about a computer that achieves sentience and basically starts messing with its researchers. Do you feel going all out makes the experience more satisfying, or does it just kind of happen for you? It's kind of a double-edged sword, to be honest. And the reason I say that is because when you really throw yourself into something, it can kind of develop into an obsession of sorts. I'm fortunate enough to not have too many neuroses, but one of the ones that I do have is striving for perfection. And I'm going to be mentioning my wife a lot with this. I would ask her first about plot beats and then about small character lines and finally about single words and lines, at which point she would say, "Stop it, it's fine, move on." But at the same time, being able to point to something that really does have that amount of polish and say, yeah, I really gave this my all, I think that's the only point where I can leave something behind. Was writing to a specific title easier or more difficult compared to your other processes? Easier, much easier. When you have those constraints with the title and the 50s theme, like I said, then I can say, well, this time travel element, probably no good. Let's get rid of that. What's your process for writing? Do you have any routines or rituals you follow? Yes, I do. I sit at my computer and then I refuse to leave until such time as I have written a certain amount, whether that's a percentage, a page, or whatever else. And I find that that helps me get over any kind of writer's block. And I'm not allowed to visit Reddit. I'm not allowed to read. I'm not allowed to eat until such time as I have accomplished that one small goal, which gives me the kick in the pants. And then I always, whenever I take a break, stop when I don't want to. That way I still have the enthusiasm to keep it going when I come back to it. What was my favorite script in the contest? So I'm going to be lame, and I'm just going to have to say that I really liked the psychological elements in Hyper Puppy script. I think I started off with sort of a fake out in my review of that, saying that the typos in the first sentence made me think that it was going to wind up being bad, and then it just sucked me in and blew me away. So that would be the one. Did you have a dream casting in mind for Trackula? I was thinking that Matt Bomer would look great, and that he would be able to just sort of affect that charm. I wasn't sure if he could get the sleaze, but I'd still give it to him. Is there a director? Oh, yeah, director, perfect fit for Trackula. So I would love to get Peter Jackson back from his old B-movie days to direct this. I think that would be phenomenal. Are there any other scripts or specific elements of scripts from this contest that you really dug? In Mallrats from Hell, there was some back and forth in the comedy that I really appreciated. Have you written a B-movie before, and did you find it any more or less challenging than writing a non-B-movie script? I can say that I've never intentionally worked on a B-movie script before. I have worked on things that went on to be B-movies, but I think that it's less challenging when you know that you can embrace the campiness, and then it's a question more of dialing it back than it is of amping it up, which, you can always carve away. It's not always easy to dump stuff in. Did you watch any movies to get in the mood for this one? No. I actually try to avoid consuming anything when I am in the process of writing because I don't want to be influenced. And more even than that, I don't want to discover that someone else has done the same thing that I have before I've gotten it out. Once I've done that, then it's fine for me to go, oh, I need to change that. I can carve that away or whatnot. But during the writing process itself, I don't want to get discouraged. Are you generally a fan of horror, or was this a foray into newer territory for you? You can actually Google this. I coined the phrase, humor is just horror with a punchline. I have always loved horror, and I am a bit of a horror snob. And I have very long felt that Well, like I said, humor is just horror with a punchline. They are two sides of the same coin. So I'm definitely a fan of horror. I probably shouldn't say this, but I grew up reading Lovecraft, and like has already been said, everybody loves Lovecraft, but I was really taken by this idea that there could be this sense that could not be described by any other word other than horror, and I've always done what I can to capture that while making it funny. Favorite Lovecraft movie? So, believe it or not, and I know that this is not the right place to say this, I don't really appreciate Lovecraft movies because I think they need to be text. I am a writer first and foremost, and, you know, so much of what conveys the feeling is in the way that it's written. I feel I've stepped on some toes with that little emoticon, but I think I'm about out of time. So I'll just thank you all for your great questions. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in the contest and to speak with you here. And I'll pass the mic.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Hey! Okay, I'll try to keep up, and if my internet gets a little wonky, just let me know. I might be able to switch over to my phone and run it off of a different way. When did I decide on the Civil War basis? I actually decided on that halfway through. That was something that was thrown in because I felt like I needed to show a further history between my stand-in Hatfields and McCoys, my Harrisons and McKennas. So I went ahead and went back further than just a couple of generations and went back all the way to Civil War times. How did I first approach the script? Like all scripts, I generally will approach with characters first, scenarios second. So Glory came first, and then I thought of what type of jobs someone like her would do, because I felt like she was kind of quirky, but really hemmed in by what she was doing. And then it turned into a tour guide versus tour guide situation, and then it kind of morphed itself from there. Have I done a cave tour? Yes, I'm actually from Missouri, and I grew up about 40 minutes from the Bonne Terre Mines, which is the largest underwater fresh source in the caves. If you Google them, you can find them, and I've done their tour a couple of times just because it's really cool. Do you hope to be like Glory when you're older? She is way cooler than I am. So yeah, sure. I would like to be like Glory now. Any inspirations for the characters? They were really a standout. No real inspirations. They kind of come as they come. You know, basically I have one character and then I'm like, okay, who is next? And then who is next? And so then basically fleshed out. There were about 3 more characters that got cut in my frantic race to the finish to try to streamline it a bit more than what it was. And of course I was still writing the day of. So it was kind of crazy since I changed my title 2 weeks before. Thank you. How was it writing an older protagonist? It was fine. I just wanted to make sure that I was doing them justice. I feel like anybody over about 50, and unless you're a very handsome male actor, basically gets no parts and nothing to do. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't fall and oh my back and oh my this and oh my that, because even though we could write B-movie, I suck at that. I'm not purposely humorous. I'm kind of randomly humorous. What exactly was the monster in the mine? The monster in the mine was actually there first. When they started digging in, they got him. He was trapped by someone else, which I would have gotten into if it had been in book form. And once it was trapped, it was a question of keeping him down there, and the constant energy of people being around him both trapped and fed him. So it's kind of an ongoing cycle for him. Big influences. I would love to have some really cool ones, but I just don't. I really don't. I just kind of go with what I like. And since I'm not a horror writer, it's a little more difficult for me to take what I do and change it for what we do. Any actresses you would cast for Glory? I actually have an entire cast. I just posted Glory. That's the picture that I decided for Glory. Did you ever consider taking this title in a B-movie direction, or did you know that you wanted to try a more serious movie from the get-go? I always knew it was going to have to be serious. I actually started with a crazy title about in the lair of the cave people, or sorry, crab people. And so I spent about 4 weeks trying to make crab people scary because I thought that would be a little more unusual. And I just couldn't do it because even though they are technically terrifying creatures, they are hilarious when you try to picture them attacking somebody. I don't know why. So when I got the new one, I wanted to make sure that I was doing what felt right and I wasn't trying to force title somewhere it didn't want to go. Could you see yourself adapting this into a book? Yes. It would actually work much better as a book. There were 4 scenes that had to not get onto the page that would have explained a lot and filled at least one plot hole that I knew about. But I think in book form, it would do a lot better. Would taking the diamonds out of the mine have released the monster? Why couldn't they sell those diamonds? They could actually sell the diamonds. What they could not do was continuously mine because they would have basically broken him free of his area. That's why they were trying to keep them away. They still had to make money and they still had to pay property taxes and they still needed to make sure that he was trapped by their constant energy coming in, but they could not risk actually breaking free or having somebody stumble upon him. So, and again, all diamonds aren't really valuable. It depends on the clarity and cut and whatnot that you do afterwards. So that was kind of where we were going with that. It's almost a useless mine, really. You'd have to really get in there to get it. Let's see. Say, not a horror writer, what draws you to the writing for the horror contest? I was actually drawn to this not for a horror contest, but I was drawn to it because I had never written a script before. I randomly joined my very first writer group last year, right before the pandemic hit, and Beans was part of that. And he kept talking about script writing versus regular writing, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's really interesting. I love movies. I wonder if I could do a script. And so I told him, hey, when the next one comes up, let me know. He's like, well, it's horror. I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And it was almost better that way because I had complete permission to fail, which is something I don't give myself a lot of time to do. So not only was it a format, but it was also a type that I had not tried to do before. Your previous scripts had a lot of novelistic descriptions. This one did not. Felt more script focused. Were you conscious of this during writing process? Yes. I do, even though I'm a pantser, I go through normally. This time only got about 3 swings through. Full front to back of the script. But normally I will go through one time for each item I'm trying to look for. Like first would be format and second would be making sure that the action lines are now broken up and that I'm not getting too wordy and crazy. I'll go back through and make sure there's no unnatural dialogue, which as you can see, there was a couple of little blocks here that I did not get to because I didn't get that swing through for it. And then I'll go back through and make sure that nothing needs to be cut. So it's edit. Just get it all out and then just edit the crud. And that's how I was able to pare down a lot of that novel stuff. What's your favorite of the scripts you've written for the contest? My very first one. In fact, it is my favorite script because it was my baby and I didn't know what I was doing. And I really liked Rick and Karen, and I'm waiting for a good script to have them pop up as a cameo in. And I have at least 2 in my brain that they could pop in for at least a scene. But I feel like I could do that script a lot better now, but it's still my favorite because I was just having so much fun. I really knew that building because I used to work in it. So that's why I was able to describe it. Do you feel you've grown since your first script? Most definitely, yes. How much outlining do you do before starting? 0. 0 outlining. I will go with character and setting and scenario, and I'll generally have about 2 or 3 cool scenes and then I'll just try to string them together. It's kind of a strange way of doing it. That's the way I do it. Thank you, Aqua. What's your process for writing? Any routines you follow? You write so quick. No routines. The only things that I have to make sure that I have are music in my ears. And I have like a big, like 65, 75 song playlist. And so I always have to have that going. But other than that, I can write just about anywhere as long as I'm typing and not doing it on my phone, because that's the worst. Favorite horror movie? I don't know if it's favorite, but I would probably go with maybe something like Slither, because it's funny and gross and tiny bit scary. Or A Cabin in the Woods, just because even though everybody bags on it because it's so overdone, I really enjoy it, and I'm not going to not enjoy it just because other people are now having a good time because Joss Whedon's a jerk. I'll try to hurry. I know I've just got a minute. Is there a story or book or you want to adapt? Yes, I have about 3 of them. A couple of ideas for pilot, depending on where we go with it. But yes, I'm actually reverse adapting things now, where I'm writing it in script form and then reversing it into book form. It seems to work really well. Does the music change for the script you're writing, or is it the same list? I will add songs to the playlist, and then if there's a song that specifically goes with a particular story, I might listen to that one on repeat a little bit while I'm writing those scenes, and then I'll skip back off because I get bored. Okay, well, I think I am wrapping up. It is Shad's turn, and I'm very excited. Thank you, and I will chat with you guys soon.
Hello, this is Shad. How did you write your script in 2 days? Necessity. So some of you know that I started this script on a very, very different idea. Basically, it was going to be kind of a really confusing time travel-y type story. The same setting that I ended up with, but a very different plot. And I worked on that for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I could not tie it together. I basically hit a huge block. And so I thought I wasn't going to finish. And then my son was visiting here, and I thought, what kind of an example would I set for my son if I don't try my hardest to finish this? And so with like 3 days left to go in the contest, I said, I'm changing the idea, and I'm just going to bang it out. And I sat down and I wrote like first like 6 or 7 pages in 1 day, and then I wrote the rest of it in 2 days. And so those 2 days were ridiculously, like, I didn't get any sleep. I was writing constantly. Kind of a fun thing to look back on and think that I could do it, although obviously everything is rushed. So there's a lot of choices I would make differently if I was going to do this and think about it more. Lights Out. I have not seen Lights Out. So if there's a script out there that's very similar to mine, I just didn't know about it. How did I come up with my monster concept? I do a lot of reading, just kind of curious, out of curiosity about science and physics and stuff like this. So I was kind of aware of dark matter as this concept. Thought it would make fun kind of horror thing. I have a brother who's like highly educated in science, and I called him and we chatted about dark matter, and he gave me some ideas, so I kind of went with that. The setting there, this gold mine in South Dakota, is actually, they did convert it, like this is a real thing. They converted the mine into a dark matter research lab. They research other things too, but there's something about the deep underground nature of the place that lends it well to certain kinds of research. So in some ways this, is based in real life. There's no monster though. You left a world build and this script felt confined within the setting. Yeah, this one was pretty basic, although I kind of enjoyed that this time around. I was trying to make the simplest kind of horror movie I could think of. A creature feature is really as basic as it gets. There's a monster, there are people, they're going to get killed by one. You know, there's just certain beats you have to hit, and I thought I could do that in 2 days. Yeah, I don't think I could world build in this kind of a story, really. Do you think doing workshops throughout the writing process was helpful? I actually do. Yeah, I really do. I really want to continue with those workshops as we go in through the next challenges, because I think bouncing ideas off of people when they're just in the formative process is really helpful, and you hardly ever get a chance to do that. So we had a really good group of people that we would meet once a week and chat. Like, we actually did some live chats, and everybody is welcome to participate as we go forward. But I thought those were really awesome. Yeah, it felt like Alien Underground in a lot of ways. Yes, Alien is, I think, my favorite horror movie. I think it's the best horror movie ever made. It was kind of an homage to Alien. Some of the things about Alien that are so great is it's this claustrophobic setting. You know, you're on this spaceship, you can't get out. You know, outside is death. And I liked that idea. I was trying to emulate that a little bit. What do you believe is your scariest moment in the script? The scariest would be visual. And, you know, like, I think that the way it was filmed, the way it would be filmed would impact how scary things were. There's nothing really that unexpected that happens, except for turn around, the creature is there. I think there was a moment when the guy, Dietz, goes to the elevator and he's like destroyed by the creature for the first time. First time you really see the creature in action. That would probably be the scariest moment. Favorite script this contest was Dr. Carnage. I thought that was brilliant, very unexpected. Still don't understand the ending. I'll have to shoot some questions to Astro, because I really don't know what he was going for with that ending, but it was just so out of left field. But it had me all the way up through the last few pages, just with this idea of this woman who's, you know, on the surface really normal and stable, and she's just this total psycho killer. So I loved that. I also thought it was just really well written on a sentence level, on a basic script level. Favorite scary moment in any other scripts in this contest? I gotta think about that for a minute. A lot of these scripts were not really scary, and I think deliberately. You know, a lot of people were having fun with it, so there was a lot of kind of comedy moments. I think that there were some scary moments in My Brother's a Tentacle Monster, also in The Fish, the Aquatic Threat. I thought that was probably the purest horror one in the contest, and I enjoyed that a lot. Favorite of all my scripts for the contest, that would be Church of Machinations. I think that was a really cool story. I didn't end up with a really good plot for it, but I like that a lot. I also I think it would be fun to film Slaymore. If I could kind of fix that script and get a better plot in there. I'm working on that. That's next on my project list. Do you think your characters would reveal the existence of the monster once they're out of the mine? Yeah, I think so. I think the way I imagined this, the creature was a one-time event. There was this detector. The creature kind of appeared in the detector and destroyed it. So once he's out, the detector is no longer functioning, so you can't summon any more creatures. But I think you could kind of leave that vague. So there might be a sequel where somebody else finds a way to open the portal back up or whatever. But yeah, I think that the survivors would scream loud, you know, we got to make sure that thing is dead down there. How do you feel writing to a title? I thought the title thing was kind of fun. It's when you're dealing with creativity, I think having restraints is a real. It really helps creativity in a weird way. You know, just having to work towards this thing that might somebody else came up with. It might not even resonate with you, but that really kind of gets the juices going. Would I write another story in this world? I don't think so. I think this one exhausted my my interest in this particular incident. Although I would like to write another creature feature. I think I have one in mind. If a future script ever comes up, that future contest that it might work for, it would be a lot cornier than this and a lot gorier. When you're on a date, how soon do you tell the girl that you're a writer? Well, most people are completely uninterested in that, so that's kind of a conversation ender. Sadly enough, for people like us, we would think this would be a really interesting thing to talk about, but most people are like, if you mention you're a writer, they're like, don't try to tell me your stories. I can see the fear in their eyes. 2 minutes. That's the lead to the date. Yeah, I'm a writer, and I'm going to tell you all about. I'm going to pitch you my stories. What's your writing process? Any routines? I do like to listen to music when I write. I think similar to what Ramses said, when I sit down to write, I have to set myself a goal that I'm not going to leave the computer until I've achieved it. I kind of have to handcuff myself in that way. I'm a huge procrastinator, so that I would never get anything done if I didn't do that. What music? I try to pick music that I think resonates with the thing I'm writing. So for some pieces, it'll be classical. For some pieces, it'll be metal. Like when I was writing Slaymore, it was all like early 90s power metal. And that just got me in the mindset. I think music can definitely help. If you can get it resonating with what you're writing, it can help you get some ideas. All right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap up. Who is next? Dylan. All right, pass it over to Dylan. Thanks, guys.
Oh, that's me. Hello, everybody. This is dillonsrule. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's good stuff. And yeah, I'll be happy to take any questions you have about. So I married a intergalactic bounty hunter. How did you feel about Taint? Yeah, I like Taint. I kind of modeled Taint on an early '90s Bruce Campbell. I think W picked up on that in one of his comments, and I wanted him to be kind of the brash bravado, guy that's always in control and can do anything, but he also screws things up somewhat regularly. I thought that would be a fun protagonist to have for a story like this. Did you watch Suburban Commando at all? I definitely did. That was a definite inspiration. That's partly why he had like metallic clothes. I kind of got some inspiration from Hulk Hogan's getup in Suburban Commando, one of the finest intergalactic bounty hunter movies from the early '90s. How quickly into writing did you feel you were writing a beat script? Pretty immediately. For anybody who doesn't know, Big Willie Beats, I don't even know if that's your name on this anymore, but Big Willie Beats is one of the other writers on here. He always writes really funny, great scripts that are very comedic. And he's the one that gave me this title. And so I decided that I would, in homage to him, try to write it in his style. And I decided to do that pretty early on. That opening scene with Taint breaking in and confronting General Squamata was written probably about 2 weeks in. And that was that remained the only thing written in the script for a while. But yeah, I was always trying to essentially write it as a beat script and kind of keep that really fun and light tone to it. Why did you kill the bear, you monster? Well, I had to kill the bear to show how tough these bounty hunters coming after him were. I mean, how else would you do it? You know, you have to introduce an incredibly threatening character and then have that character killed by the bad guys. That was the thought, at least. So and also I was like, I've got to try to squeeze an ounce of horror into this thing, and I thought maybe a bear being eviscerated would do it. And it didn't really. I mean, it was very clearly not a horror script. Oh, and that transitions very well into this next question. Were you ever worried that you were writing a non-horror script in a horror contest, or was it not a concern? I'll be honest, it wasn't really a concern. I there are so many scripts in these contests that end up kind of horror adjacent. And I was originally intending to make this a horror adjacent script. I had an idea of a scene where they were going to be eating these little creatures that were like begging for their lives. And Kara would be like, oh my God, this is, monstrous. And Tane would be like, oh, they don't actually feel anything as they're, like screaming and begging for mercy. And I thought that like I could add in some little horror elements like that to make it more horror adjacent, but ultimately I just kind of ran out of time and cut all those. So I knew it wasn't going to be a horror script, and I sort of resigned myself to not doing well in this contest. And it actually did much better than I thought it would. I was very happy to make it through to the top 10. I wasn't expecting it because it really isn't a horror script at all. Any specific movies inspire you? Suburban Commando, certainly. I was trying to go for sort of a Romancing the Stone feel, but ultimately the romance in the script just really fell flat and didn't come through. But on a second pass, I would focus on that a whole lot more. Is Deathwish his birth name? That sounds like a joke. I'm genuinely curious. No, it's in the script. His birth name was Elam. Elam. He picked the name Taint Deathwish because he thought it sounded really tough when he was 12 years old and decided to become a bounty hunter. Was writing the story comedically difficult or easy for you? It was very difficult. I find writing really grim horror where people are dying and having their faces ripped off and eaten by animals a lot easier. I think comedy is really hard because it's so easy for it to fall flat. And I was very happy that most of the feedback I got on this was that the comedy worked for the most part, which was great. But yeah, no, that was part of my biggest issue with this was I was trying really hard to make the comedic tone consistent throughout, and luckily I think it came through. Future drafts must include the bear surviving. I'm afraid I can't do that. Having done both now, do you find it more difficult to write effectively horror or effective comedy? I think comedy, I really do. Effective horror is also tough because if you're trying to build tension, it can fall flat if it's not tense or if it doesn't really work. But I still think comedy is really tough especially because you could write something and you're like, oh, that's really funny. That's funny. People are gonna like that. And then someone reads it and they're like, yeah, the humor just really didn't work for me on that. I was afraid, like her mom telling her not to curse and then calling the cab driver a cocksucker. Like, I was like, is that gonna land? Is that stupid? But like I said, I think it landed for the most part, which is very nice. Have D&D or any other RPGs you're involved with influence your writing? Not really. Maybe a little bit. We have a group of writers on here. We have a D&D game that we play weekly or whenever we're all able to play. It seems recently, and yeah, it's been it's been very nice, and I think it helps keep the creative juices flowing. And every once in a blue moon, there'll be some element from an RPG story that I'll think about and say, oh, maybe I could put something like that in a script. But generally speaking, the setting of an RPG, you know, a D&D game, kind of a medieval setting, and whatever high fantasy, not something I'm typically writing in scripts. So it's not something that ultimately I think comes through, you know, comes into play very, very often. What sequence are you most proud of in this script? I really liked the sequence with Mauricio and the little robots coming out. That just sort of came to me like I had just finished writing the scene before it with the escape and Kara and all this stuff, and he jumps back in, and I was like, well, shit, the glass is broken. What's he gonna do? And it just occurred to me that that might be a fun sequence, and it all just kind of came out right there. So I really enjoyed that sequence. I thought it was really fun and funny. What was the funniest moment in this contest from another writer? Oh, there were actually a fair amount of really funny scripts. I'm trying to think of a specific moment. I'm not sure I can think of one right now. I really like Special Dead Livery. I thought that script really nailed the tone of like the B movie very well. It didn't go too far, in my opinion. It really kind of rode that fun ride to the end. For some reason, the the moment that's springing to mind is fingering the cheese at the end of Mallrats from Hell. You know, I don't know if that's actually the funniest moment, but that's the one that's coming to me right now. Um, let's see. Why did Taint's robots immediately like Kara? All of my sentences are so horrible and out of context. No, your sentences are great. I don't know, because it was funny that they would like her and hate him. I would imagine it's because she probably flattered them and treated them with respect in a way that Taint doesn't. Did you ever feel weird writing the name Taint that often? Yeah, you know, at the beginning, the name Taint Deathwish came about as sort of a joke on the Discord. We went to like a bounty hunter name generator just to like toss around fun ideas of what it would be, and the name Taint Deathwish kind of came out of there. We thought it was so fucking funny, and so I was using it in the script fully with the intent of changing the name by the time I finished it. I'm like, that'll be my placeholder name. It's kind of fun and silly. And I wrote it so much that the name Taint no longer seemed weird to me. I wasn't thinking of it in the way that we think of it. It was just his name. And so by the end, you know, that was his name, and I couldn't change it. And it seemed just too, it seemed too good to change. So Taint Deathwish became the name. Let's see. Any book influences? Not really. Certainly. Well, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Have been for many, many years. So I would say of book influences that are just sort of like in the DNA of the script, that would definitely be one. I don't think my writing could ever be as witty and clever and amazing as Douglas Adams, but that's your book influence for me, kind of forever. And I try not to panic, and I always bring a towel, and that's just great advice for life. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks a lot. I'm amazed I made it to the top 10. I was very thankful, and I'm glad that it seemed most people enjoyed the script, thought it was fun. Ramsey, I apologize for the gross amount of spelling and grammar errors. I pumped out about half of the script in the final 2 days because, like Shad, I'm a terrible, terrible procrastinator. So, all right. Thanks a lot, guys. And yeah, I'll look forward to seeing what everybody writes for the next one.
Hello. I'm Layden, and I wrote My Brother is a Tentacle Monster. I can't imagine what the first question is going to be. Okay. Was there ever a point where you were not going to do the tentacle sex? Once it came to me, I was gonna just go with it to the end, kind of like the sex scene in Feed. I knew that this was gonna either be hilarious for some people or just rub people the wrong way, and I think it did a mixture of both, which I thought was perfect. I was laughing as I was writing it. I was grossed out as I was writing it, and I was I was worried that people were going to look at me in a different way. I will be avoiding laden sex questions this time. Yep. Were the more sections you cut? Nope, there was only the one. Just wanted that one. Well, I guess the two, one right after the other. It was important for me to make it somewhat consensual on her part. Was the octopus ever going to be chewing bubble gum? Nope. I wanted to set it in an area that gum wouldn't really be on the character's person or anything. Talk about the Lovecraft angle. Are you a big Lovecraft fan? Yep, love Lovecraft. As it's been mentioned before, I think his works work better on the page than on film. But Lovecraft-inspired movies that I kind of looked to for this was definitely Dagon from Stuart Gordon, and there's actually a character named Gordon in the script. Color Out of Space again, just for like the kind of visual purple green aspect when the script goes to color. The Noir direction was an unexpected choice given the title. Did you know you wanted to write a noir story from the beginning, or did you decide after the title? It was consensual. She loved it. I definitely wanted to I always wanted to write a Lovecraft horror script, and I always wanted to do it with a noir angle. So when I actually got My Brother is a Tentacle Monster, I figured this is the only opportunity I'll get to do it, and I just went with it. The black and white aspect came in after I'd written it. I think it just started. The opening scene was black and white, and then after that, it went to color. And then I went back and I was like, no, I think this would work better if the whole thing was in black and white. And then bits of color came in once the abyss thing sort of creeped in. Do you feel it pays off to be upfront with your references to Lovecraft or other films or subtle? It's hard for me to gauge my own writing in terms of being subtle or in your face. Other people have to do that for me. And as it was with this, a lot of people said that the references were a little too much. And like I can definitely see where I can eliminate a lot of them, like the Lovecraft title for the boat is one thing. I always like having winks and nods to the reader for things that they understand, and I knew a lot of people weren't going to get a lot of the references too, but I was actually surprised that a lot of people knew everything that I was going for. How early did you envision the boat sinking scene? That was the first thing. The whole script came from that scene actually, and it was actually inspired by the trench attacking Aquaman in that movie. So that's the first sort of image that I had, and I wrote that scene by itself first, and then I went back to the beginning and crafted a story from there. Yep, when you saw Aquaman, I probably mentioned that to somewhere before. Your story is awesome, but the title sets a different expectation. Are you thinking of changing the title now that the contest is over? Yes. I always liked the title Beyond the Sea. And that was kind of what I was always going to call my Lovecraft story, whatever it was going to be. But, My Brother is a Tentacle Monster. Definitely, I had to throw that moment in the script where he is holding his brother and he screams it like a Khan Star Trek II type situation. And that definitely changes the tone of the script, which the tone of this script is all over the place. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It hasn't worked for me in the past. Suction cups. Hey, I like that one, but it might be a little too close to My Brother's a Tentacle Monster. Did you always know you were going to end with a setup sequel for bigger universe? No, that came on a quick rewrite. For those who are familiar with my other scripts, I am kind of doing an in-universe evil corporation thing. And he mentions, would you go back in time to save your brother and steal the book for us? So that sort of alludes to timeshare, this whole company kind of going around the world looking for pockets of abnormalities, whatever they may be, and then using them to their advantage. Feed the whole parasitic tapeworm thing. In my head, those things came out of the abyss with Cthulhu, and a future script that I'm going to do is kind of going to try and tie a lot of this other stuff together, but I didn't have that in the end originally. In fact, I didn't even have the whole brothel saving scene. That was added after I actually had him boxing for like a loan shark or something, and it just didn't work. So I scratched that and went with what I did. Do you see the story as set actually in Lovecraft's universe, University in Arkham, or is it an alternate universe that shares these names? I'm in my mind, I'm writing my stories in my own universe, and in this universe, Cthulhu exists now. So I've taken the stories from Lovecraft and I've just incorporated them into basically what I've sort of come up with. 5 minutes. An ideal casting for your lead? Maybe, I don't know. I wasn't thinking about it, and then my wife was saying John Hamm as the lead. I can kind of see it. He might be a bit older. I'm not entirely sure. What did your wife think of this one? Yeah, she wasn't too big of a fan of it. I'm not sure if it was maybe the tentacle sex scene or whatnot, but she just kind of finished it and said, "Yeah, not your best, but it's good." What's your writing process? Any routines? Do you listen to music? I know I ask this every time, but I find this information very interesting. I usually don't plan anything out. I just write as it comes. The only script I ever planned anything out with was Bloody Damned. Any routines? Yep, I listen to not music per se, more like ominous sort of mood-setting music. So with Bloody Damned, I listened to some Nordic type music. With this, I listened to a lot of ambiance of like the sea and boats and any type of music that would have sort of maritime themes. 2 minutes, 100%. Did you know the plan? Twin swap early on. At the plan, like the ending when they're swapping. Nope, I didn't. That didn't come up. That was sort of kind of organically what I thought the direction was going to go with. I definitely can work it a little bit better, I think, for him taking over his brother's life, essentially. And I definitely think I need to rework him getting to the island a bit more. Actually, Shad gave me some good ideas on what I could do with that. And Jay, you did as well, actually. So I'm definitely going to approach this script again and hone it a little bit better. What's your favorite script of yours and why is it dying across? I love that you're a big fan of that, and I do want to write a sequel to that. My favorite script has to be The Bloody Damned, just because I wrote that so fast and I had a lot of fun doing it. And I actually am wanting to turn that into a novel, which I'm going to do hopefully this year. But Dying Across, even though I got a lot of polarizing feedback, I do want to continue a story in that world. What's the horror scene you loved from this contest? You're putting me on the spot with not much time with. I'll come back to that quickly. Have you seen Beer Fest? It was one of the most hilarious twin swaps in movie history. I love Broken Lizard. I think Club Dread is the most underrated comedy film of all time. Thank you, Dim Darkly. How long did it take you to figure out the type of tentacle monster you're going to put in it? very early on, I knew that I wanted the tentacles to be as gross as possible. And every time I wrote Squid Blob Philip, I giggled, and I didn't really know what it was going to look like. It just sort of like the blob with tentacles in a weird way, and I just went from there essentially. Um, I think I'm out of time. Did he secretly enjoy the blob tentacle sex? Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't enjoy that? To be honest, he probably. Uh, with that, I'm probably going to end it there. I knew it was going to end and start with tentacle sex. So thank you.
All right, I'm ScreamingVegetable, also known as Ben Crew, also known as the guy who wrote "It Came!" exclamation point. And great job, Layden. So ask away. Funny because I have the other tentacle sex script, and we just followed each other up on that. Yeah, there you go, buddy. When did you know you were writing a snuff film script? So I didn't want to. The script I wrote before this was the short for Ventureland, which was a commentary on Harvey Weinstein and all that stuff. A disgust and general loathing for Hollywood pops up in a lot of my scripts. And a lot of that comes down to the way the people in power act. And so my last script was a commentary on people like Harvey Weinstein, and this script came along, and I think I had 3 other titles given to me, and I didn't like any of them until Aqua gave me It Came, and I just thought at first, I had the idea for the snuff film pop up, because the title itself, obviously, it is both a 50s cheesy sci-fi movie, but is also something more sinister implied by the title It Came, which is a snuff film. So I realized that could work, and I was like, I don't know if I want to make it work. And I talked with the mods, and they said, you can make it different enough. It's still going to be, this is more commentary on like how the porn industry exploits women rather than on Hollywood itself, even though there's plenty of Hollywood stuff in there. How much work did you put into the old film references? If you mean my own research, I mean, I'm just a guy who has a really good knowledge of that old film stuff. The Clark Gable stuff with his daughter, that was something new I learned. I don't remember how I came across that. But, I mean, any of the Hitchcock stuff, or when Denham was talking about these other actors, and like how Cary Grant does LSD, like I knew that stuff. And I knew writing this script when I had the idea, I'm like, well, I can flex my muscles here. I can really show off what I know. How was it figuring out how to portray alcoholism in your script? That was very difficult. I actually tried to drink while writing one part of it and just got really tired and got depressed with it. And that was not a method experience I want. It's never easy for anyone to write alcoholism, even if you have someone in your life or you've gone through it yourself. Writing about it, writing can be therapy, but it's still painful for someone to go through that. So I tried to have, I didn't know if I really succeeded on this, but characters like Shu, you know, who are alcoholics, I wanted to have some sympathy for them, but also, you know, there's an understanding that when people are alcoholics, there's sometimes you can't save, like her father, you know, that she would see anyone who touches a beer as akin to her father, and that's whenever she sees the main actor, he says basically he sees himself as her father figure, when Shu in fact is the real father figure. So that's the kind of contrast, and Shu's the one who stops drinking at the end, and that's why he's the one who she'd want to be her true father and protects her at the end and everything. What movies were inspirations for this script? Really the Sam Peckinpah movies, that they start out rather slow, and by the end, I mean, everyone knows the third act to this goes absolutely insane and is incredibly violent, and that's probably one of the most violent things I've written. By the way, someone time me. I'm going to figure out my own time and remind me whenever I have to wrap. So Sam Peckinpah was the major influence with how I decided to write this and build up to what I knew would be an insane finale. The finale was what I knew from the start. I honestly thought, like, what kills haven't I done before? And I thought I've never had someone scalped. And scalping is actually really horrifying to me. I remember I was a kid and I saw some play that was just a Cowboys and Indians thing, and somebody literally got scalped in the play, and as a kid I just screamed and ran out. I don't know what that play was, but it was horrifying. And so I thought, I've never done scalping, I'll lead up to some kind of revenge way at the end where somebody gets scalped. So that was what everything led up to. Are you thinking of doing a rewrite? And if so, Shu be a bigger part? Yeah, I'd want Shu to be a bigger part, and I'd want everything to be cleaner. One thing that's in a rewrite I think I'd fix up, my condition I was given was your main character is very naive and optimistic, and the funny thing was you'd read the cons on people's feedback and they'd say Melanie's too naive and optimistic, and I'd think, like, yeah. So that was my condition. I stayed rather close to it, but I think I'd have Melanie be a little more aware of what's going on because she's just very naive. And a normal person would have probably been out of there quickly. But that's what I said about it being commentary on the porn industry was the main influence was that there was some porn group that, like, they were in Australia and they would fly girls out and tell them it was a modeling gig, and they would get there and they're like, it's not actually a modeling gig, and then they would say, we're not paying for your plane ticket back unless you do this. Then they'd say it's a private thing, no one's going to see it, and then millions of people would see it. And there was some big legal stink over it. I don't remember what they were called, but they all got sued and, like, had to go to jail or something because they were just leading these girls on. And basically, girls do porn, that's what it's called. They, thanks Dylan. But they were entrapping, I guess it's called. So that's basically what it was. There's that line where, you know, Melanie says, I'm going to leave, and Denham says, like, with what money? You want to go to the road and try and get back home? And she's just gaslighting her the entire time and making her believe it's safer here, you know, where we've agreed to do these things. The main character in this script reminded me a lot of the protagonists from writer's blocks. Do you think there was a shared DNA between them? Okay, I think all my characters have a very shared DNA that they're very... I have characters who are initially wide-eyed optimists. I can definitely see that. I think you're making that connection because writer's blocks had a villain who was molding a girl into what he wanted when she really wasn't that. So a lot of that comes from Vertigo, which I did rewatch and was very interesting for me to analyze as I was writing this. Because I said I liked that movie because we're all doing Vertigo in our own way. We're, like, writing screenplays and molding characters into what we want it to be. So that's why it's interesting why you have those two scripts where you have these villains who are molding women to be what they specifically want, whether that is their dream fictional character or whether that is the actress in a movie that they're going to sell. So I can see that being the same, but they do have very different things. Obviously, also, there's father issues there between both of them, Isabella and Melanie. Did you enjoy writing an insane finale? Absolutely. That's what I was looking forward to, and I think people either got to that and they were shocked or they felt like more and more. 5 minutes, I think. Thanks. At what point did you decide the actor guy was going to just lose it at the end? I always knew that. There's... Errol Flynn was a bit of an influence. Like, he was pretty insane. There's so many rumors about him that he was like a Nazi, and there is confirmed that he had these little peepholes in his house that he'd have guests stay over, and he would just watch women sleep, and it was like insane stuff. It's like he's one of the biggest stars in the world, and he's still this creep who has to look through peepholes at women living in his... he was an alcoholic, you know, by the end of his life. Terrible stuff. And it was just interesting to me that this guy who was on top of the world ended up being this weird creep. And so I knew that the lead actor, Belko, was always going to lose at the end. He needed the money. He was an alcoholic to deal with this evil thing he was going to have to do. Which character is your favorite to write for? In this script, she was always fun because he was a man of many words and he spoke through his actions. Favorite character you've ever written? Eliza in Showstopper, no doubt. Script really fits your mid-70s exploitation. Let's see, is there anything behind Peckinpah? I did watch that movie, Wake in Fright, with the kangaroos getting killed. It's just gruesome. If you haven't seen that movie, it's just oof. It's literally just a bad day in Australia. I don't know how else to word it. But it is a brutal movie that is one of the first times in a long time that I felt shocked. And so understanding that feeling of watching a movie, and that's also an alcoholism movie. A lot of that movie played a big influence on how I decided to tell this story. That I wanted to write something that, yes, carried a message and spoke about the dangers and, effect alcoholism has on people, but also to have this third act that was going to leave your mouth on the floor whenever everything bad started happening. Seemed interesting to you, the main producer be female. Yes, this is my first female villain, technically. Marilyn Monroe was a villain in Endless America, but it doesn't really count. She's an alien. I've never written a female villain, and I basically wanted to say that your predators aren't all Harvey Weinstein, For every Epstein, there's a Ghislaine Maxwell. If that's how her name is spelled, it's like that. But that's the point that I have my villain's monologue. I know I'm going over here. I have my villain's monologue and say their, plot points out loud, their themes. And Denham basically says, I've seen the future. Anyone's going to be able to do this. And it's not just going to be, basically Louis B. Mayer's controlling everything. It's going to be, anyone is going to have this ability to make films like this and people are going to want it. So it was just basically a warning that anyone with power can abuse it. It's not just who you'd expect. And that's Melanie seeing a woman on the set and thinking, I could trust her, was one of her biggest mistakes. I don't have a dream director or casting, actually. I stayed away from that with this. I actually would look at people from the 50s, like Natalie Wood or Kirk Douglas, whenever I was writing. I don't think I have any more questions, and I think I've gone over, so I'm going to wrap there. This was a very interesting experience to write, and I'm glad you all enjoyed it.
Hello, I am Fish. I wrote Aquatic Threat from Outer Space. While you guys are getting your questions up, this was my first contest with you guys, and this was super fun. I was super impressed with what I put out, but also even more impressed by what you guys all put out. How many scripts have you written? I've written a lot of comedy stuff. I used to do comedy a lot, so I've written a lot of sketches and things like that. And I've written a few pilots and shorter things, but this would be my third feature script that I've done. What drew you to the contest? How have you liked it? I was just browsing Reddit on the horror Reddit, and I saw this, and I thought it was super cool. I'm always looking for stuff to give me reasons to write things, and I think the deadline is super super important to me. So it was really great. I enjoyed this whole process a lot. It really forced me to do work really quickly, which I don't normally do. How big of an influence was the personality of Steve Irwin? I mean, it was definitely a pretty big influence. I don't know that I really nailed that. That would be something I would have to kind of go back in and kind of fine tune a little bit with that character. But I did want to have, I guess I wanted to have, I definitely want to have that vibe and I put it in the script. Think of Steve Irwin. So that was an easy cheat on that one. First time writing horror. No, this is my second horror script, but I have been a fan of horror forever. Most of my stuff is just comedy. It took me a long time to kind of break out of the idea that comedy writing is also like lends itself to other writing, and instead of just calling yourself a comedy writer, you can do other things. Let's see. Did you enjoy writing something with a very big adventure movie-esque kind of setup? Yes, it was great, because normally when I'm writing things, I'm trying to think of things that could possibly be made. And so this whole just being a B movie and being these other things, I felt like the spirit of B movies is not caring about those things and just going out and doing the things that you think are cool. So it was super fun to write something that I would never in a million years be able to actually produce in any way on my own. What films inspired this script? I think it's pretty obvious. Like Alien was huge. I didn't really watch anything to get inspired by it, but the title was, it was right there between Alien and The Thing, and I was immediately like, well, I'm not going to write either of those movies, so so I'll do those. Any inspirations in general? I mean, just as far as the B movies goes, just all of those 80s kind of slashers, I feel like that is ingrained in me a little bit, of just hitting those beats, which was something that I knew I could totally do. Were there any other models for alien creatures that you considered doing that didn't make it into the script? No. I I actually just had 3 creatures for the longest time, and then I was trying to so the two, the spear and the claw, were based kind of modeled on the same kind of shrimp creature. And I kept going back about which one of those I would do, and then I decided it would be more fun to kind of split that into 2 different creatures. Why was he okay with being tricked by her lying about the kid being her nephew? I think, to me, that was something I was trying to throw in, that I don't know that I have a great answer to that, but I can talk about it for a minute. I think I was okay with it. He was okay with it just because of the sheer audacity of it. Kind of her willing to do whatever it took. I think the whole idea with the kid was trying to play on his um, past of being like a TV personality. That's why I kind of put that little kid in the beginning. So I think that was something that he was ultimately like, okay, this lady is totally willing to go the extra mile. I might as well go with her. Did you find the title difficult, and how did you come up with the idea? I found the title at first. I was very disappointed by the title. It's so generic, and perfectly, but perfectly from that 50s era, which is ultimately, I didn't go there. But at the end of the day, I was like, I guess I signed up for this to have like restraints and to have things like that. So I just rolled with it. And eventually I was super happy with what I came up with. I actually had a whole bunch of really crazy ideas that involved like mummy sharks and resurrected armies and things like that. And then at a certain point I was like, wait a second, none of this is aquatic threats from outer space. So let's just back up a minute and start with something a little more simple. Did you consider having the protagonist die at the end? If so, when did you decide to have him live? I never really decided to have him die at the end, to be completely honest. I was just trying to hit those kind of beats with a final boy, I guess, in this case, but I was just trying to hit those beats, and so I wanted him to survive. Usually the lead creature wants to kill the creature and the bad guy wants to keep it alive, yet you have your hero be the one who wants to keep it alive. Was that organic for the character, or did you want him to walk a line between being responsible for people's deaths? I think once I landed on that Steve Irwin character kind of archetype, it had to be, there's no way he wants to actually kill these creatures, right? That whole character was about conservation and about trying to, like, that was what he had built his whole kind of life outside about that. So I didn't feel like he would have done that. how did you go about making the best creatures of the contest? Oh, thanks. That's super nice. I guess when I they're all modeled off of just actual sea creatures, which I think is kind of awesome, and just scale those things up and imagine them ripping us to shreds, which would be terrifying. So really, like, all of those creatures and the things that they do are pretty much just things that ocean creatures can already do, just we don't live in the same environment with them. So so thank God for that. I looked up fish to see how I could incorporate them into horror. Did you try the same thing? Oh yeah, I totally. Um, that's 100% what I did. Will you be joining us for future contests with us? Yes, for sure. I'm definitely. This was a super fun. This was a super fun experiment for me. It really pushed me to do things that I really enjoyed. Here's a nice fresh question. What are your writing process? Any routines? Do you listen to any music? So yes, I my writing process, I have a deadline. I have a big wall calendar that I buy every year. I have a deadline that not a deadline, but I have a goal of every day, and every day that I meet the goal, I get to put an X on the calendar. That's my kind of process. But I actually have been working on some other projects. So with this contest, I did not count any writing of this script with that. So this really pushed me out to do more than I ask of myself normally, which is actually pretty great. I do listen to music. Mostly I listen to kind of folky music, but definitely when I'm getting into different like genres. So this was like I said, this was the second horror script that I have written, and it was so I'm not used to killing characters, which was super weird, and definitely takes you to some dark places. I definitely listened to Rob Zombie's Hellbilly Deluxe like probably 20 times while while working on this script. Any particular ideas for the contest that you'd like to see in the future? I mean, I don't have any great ideas, to be completely honest. I mean, I think what you guys have going is pretty great. Did you have anyone outside the contest read your script? Yeah, I had a few of my friends read it. I've got a few people that will are willing to do that. So that's super fun. Dylan, are you trying to steal people's processes? Look, hey, yeah, get your ideas. Find out what works for you. I think it's important to figure out what works for you, and that's by taking from everybody else, right? And then, what was your favorite script of the contest? I mean, the winner, Night of the X-Ray Zombies, really nailed kind of every aspect of it, and I'm a sucker for vomit. That that totally rules. I think that there were so many things that were so great. So I Married an Intergalactic Bounty Hunter was so funny. Ultimately, not horror, and I was like, oh, where can I rank this? But I was like, I enjoy the script, so let's keep going with it. I also really enjoyed out of the top 10. I thought the which one was it? The Werewolf Witches of West Hollywood. I thought was super enjoyable. Just that whole idea. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for me. Thank you guys again for this is a cool community, so I'm really glad that I found it. So thanks guys.
Hey, so I worked like a 10-hour shift a different day this week so that I could be here at least by the end of it. So I know Pantser has like a million questions. So space those out throughout. And if I can't get to all of them, I will get to them later. Yeah, I'm AstroSlop. I wrote John Patterson. I wrote Dr. Carnage's Grotesque Vengeance. That's for the recording. Explain your ending. Well, actually, we'll go back. ScreamingVegetable said, first of all, what the fuck? I like that type of shit. I love that type of movie, so that's why I did it. Explain your ending. I mean, I thought it was pretty self-explanatory. It turns out that everything is a ritual in order to call something forward, and like the particulars are not gone into because I don't think they're particularly important, and I think I've made that point with the character talking about it. But you can either view it as it's any sort of like celestial being, maybe, you know, like a Lovecraftian thing or an alien thing, but that's really up to your own interpretation. My process for keeping things moving is generally to, when I'm writing, I picture in my head how it would go as a script. I mean, as a film. And as I every day after when I finish, the next day when I start, I go back and read and I look for dead spots. I look for things that don't work. I look for stuff that could derail everything. I try to keep it going as well as possible because I know that I have a lot of films that I would like a lot, but the pacing kills it for me. Pacing's one of the big deal breakers for me with a movie. So I'm kind of a stickler for it. At any point, did you gross yourself out while writing the torture scenes, or were you laughing maniacally the entire time? Uh, I'd say a little column A, column B on that one. Um, the guy that gets stabbed in the perineum, that was one of my first ideas I had when I was coming up with it, and that just made me laugh. I may have been a little bit intoxicated when I came up with it too. I don't drink at all when I'm writing. It's one of the parts of my processes. I completely abstain from alcohol while I'm in the process of writing. So, but I did gross myself out a couple times. The teeth hammer got me, and the slow decapitation of the drifter kid got me. Did the husband kill himself to avoid being killed by her in a ritual? Or is it guilt for knowing what she was doing? Did she need him in particular? Well, she kind of sees him as the person who showed her the way because she's getting these interpretations of what to do from his books. Uh, she didn't need him in particular at that point. She wanted him to join her, but the problem is, the way I see it in my head is, before the script, he walks in. She's like, "I need to show you something." He walks into the shed. There's a person strung up. She kills him. He can't handle with what's going on, so he kills himself because he thinks it's his fault. Is the Moonchild really her child or someone she summoned? I wouldn't say biologically it's her child. In a way, because it was birthed through the ritual, it is technically her child, but I don't think that it is something that is, you know, drawn from her DNA entirely or anything like that. And I played with the idea of having her be barren as part of it, but then I like the idea better that she was pretending she was. So it's not really anything to do with like that. Do you consider this the most range you've ever written a character? Um, Submerged has some characters that come close. I think we spend more time with Amelia than we do the other characters I've written that have been really, really off. So probably. Any influences aside from the torture gore stuff? If you could tell from the pacing and from the general variety of it, a lot of like the 70s sort of Taxi Driver and stuff like that, I would say. The movies where it's like, or like Bad Lieutenant or something like that, because it's mostly a character piece that's also built around violent scenarios. Did you enjoy writing the script more than other types of script? I did actually. I've had a love for extreme horror for a long, long time, and I thought that this would be a good point to finally do it because I didn't feel like, as a writer, when I was earlier on and, you know, like maybe a couple scripts in, I wouldn't be able to do this sort of thing justice at all. It would just come off as edgy and stupid. But as I get better as I go, I think that it was a lot of fun, honestly. A lot of extreme cinema along the lines of Grotesque or Guinea Pig often get complaints about being fairly plotless. How did you balance those influences with a more narrative structure? Mostly Cat 3 films. Cat 3 films generally have for people who don't know, Cat 3 was a rating in Hong Kong for a while, and that's where a lot of their exploitation films were. And they generally follow a narrative structure that is not aimless or plotless, like, say, August Underground or things like that. So I'd say the two ones I mainly got that from was stuff like The Untold Story or Diary of a Serial Killer from 1995. Before the contest, you said you wanted some controversial scripts. Do you feel that request was satisfied? Um, there's a difference between controversial and being gross to be gross. It's kind of hard to say. There's some of the scripts within that boundaries satisfied that for me, and some didn't. I like to see when people really push me outside my comfort zone when I'm reading, and I got that a little bit, but not a whole bunch. How long was the gap between the husband's suicide and the start of this piece? 2 weeks, exactly. You originally started writing a very different type of script. At what point did you decide to change directions and write this one? I originally was going to write this entirely as a Nazi exploitation throwback. That was the original idea. I had it outlined, I had it ready to go, and then I just decided I didn't like the outline at all, and I was going to kill that idea and move forward with something else. When I decided that I wanted to change it was I didn't think that thematically it was interesting. It was kind of like flat and blasé, so I just killed it. We can come back to that idea later if I get a better one, but I didn't get one this time. Was she always crazy or was she influenced or drawn into something? She's always been you she's the type of person that you would say that like she seems cold and distant and stuff like that. She's a narcissistic psychopath. I don't think she's necessarily like delusional or anything like that. She sees something that she thinks is well, I guess she would be, but she's not like out and out crazy. But the fact that her reasoning feeds into what she does, I think actually makes her more terrifying. How did you initially feel about your condition and title? My condition was fine. Psychologist is what I needed to do. That's fine. My title, Dr. Carnage's Grotesque Vengeance. At first, I was like, "Wow, that's a mouthful," because I usually do one-word titles every time I do this, and so I ended up thinking about it, and it reminded me of like the stuff you'd see at regional drive-ins in like the '70s, '80s, or like I said, Cat 3 films. And so I kind of started to work those together, and then I was watching a bunch of movies at the time, and I kind of pulled a bunch of influences from that. Favorite scene from this contest? That's a tough one, actually. If I had to think of a single favorite scene, it would probably be the slaughter by the sex bot near the beginning of what is it called? Wage Workers on Wild Waters. I actually liked that one a lot, and I liked that script a lot, and I was kind of upset it didn't make the top 10. Do you think this kind of film would benefit from a low budget rather than a larger one? Yes, and that's kind of why I want to rewrite it and change the ending because you could probably shoot this for pretty low budget at the end of the day. What script in the contest do you feel pushed you the most out of your comfort zone in a good way? I'd have to look at a list. Like honestly, there's 26 scripts. It is very hard to remember each and every one that I read this time. The most fucked up one that was also good. Hold up, let me look at the list because I am stupid and I cannot remember things because I have bad memory. I'll circle back to that one. What's your process for writing? Do you have any routines or rituals you follow? Yes, I don't drink when I write. I try to listen to music, but I don't always listen to music. I try if a script needs research, I do that first. If it doesn't need research, I just start writing. How much outlining do you do normally? Incredibly little. Like a sentence and act. Where do you rank the script among your others? I'd say top 5 easily. I'm pretty harsh on my older ones because I go back and I look at the action lines and they make me want to quit writing because they're terrible. I don't think I really hit my stride when it came to writing action lines until Ashes, which isn't even a contest script. What's my favorite of my scripts? It's either Ashes or Rajaku, one of those two. And I guess that is it. Does anyone have any more questions? I need to answer that one I didn't answer. I need to find these scripts. Give me 1 second. Be horror movie title scripts alive. Yeah, no, I don't know that any that actually really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Actually, I'm looking at it, and the ones that made me uncomfortable were ones that I didn't like, so I won't name them. What made me want to do the melt thing? I this is a language thing, so language wording. I fucking love melt films. Anything to do with like body melting. I love The Blob. I love Body Melt. I love Street Trash. If I could do that in every script, I would be happy. Who had the better tentacle sex script? Wasn't there only one? Am I missing something? Are there any of your scripts you'd particularly like to film? Ashes. Oh, Veg is dead. Shit, you're right. I'm sorry. I cuss a lot. It's a military thing. Yeah, if I could film one short, anything I've written, it'd be Ashes. So that's it. All right. Y'all have a good night. I gotta go get back to watching more stuff.